Hi, welcome back to The Art of Fatherhood. I'm Brian Fauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
David Jones.
And today we are talking about something with kids, something related to children.
Something related to fatherhood.
Something about dads and shacking up with other women and them having kids, and then we have kids, and there's a bunch of kids, and now there's kids. I think that was a very concise explanation of today's podcast. Today's podcast is about managing blended families. David, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience real quick?
Hey, David Jones. I guess serial entrepreneur. Known Brian here for a little bit. So we were just shooting a podcast, and he said, "Hey, why don't you stick around for the fatherhood thing?" And I said, "Yeah, why not? I got 4 kids. That
Because
makes
we all
sense."
have blended families,
Yeah.
right? We all, everyone here, we are a blended family. And we have blended families, which is, it's more common today. But I think the fact that all 3 of us have a blended family is a little unique,
Right.
and definitely not. It's not the majority by any means. So it presents unique challenges.
No,
and for
back in the day, it's just you had to watch the Brady Bunch.
Right. It
That
was
was the
so
only ones,
it was
and-
so odd that they made a fucking TV show about
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Like, look at this craziness.
It
And then
was
we
like,
all
wow.
look around and we're like,
Here's the story
"You
of
mean
a lovely lady."
You mean like my life?" But like,
Well, that makes me think now. Do entrepreneurs lead to blended families?
yeah,
Maybe, I don't know.
I
What's a
know.
common factor here?
Maybe, it can contribute. I think. I don't think that was the case in my
Not doing
case,
a great
but, yeah.
risk reward analysis.
Yeah, right.
Not paying attention to the burn rate.
Yeah, the burn rate. Way to use the key terms there. That's awesome. All right, so let's lay the stage with a little framework. I have 5 kids in a blended family, 2 young ones that came from my first marriage, and my wife had 3 that came from her first marriage, and we don't have any together because we realized 5 was enough, and we would stop right there. We just have Bobalina, who we always see popping around the podcast. That's our baby. She just went out and ran, so now she's chilling. She's laying
That's
down.
cool.
She's like, that was a lot. It's hot out there. It's gorgeous out. So what's your blended family dynamic? Let me throw one in. The age range for me right now is 14 through 29.
Well, you're old.
My wife is older. I brought the younger ones to the equation.
My wife is older. Jeez.
Throw it down.
I'm just listening to our podcast.
So she's beautiful. She's just older. Shame on you for assuming that older can't be beautiful, Patrick.
Go ahead. Keep
Fucking
going. Let's keep going. Keep it
stereotypical son of a
rolling.
bitch.
Keep it rolling.
Yeah, so mine 2 and 2 with the 4 kids. So the 2 older ones are basically 16 and 18 now almost, and my 2 younger ones are 2 and 8. So I have them from 2 to 18. So 1 in diapers and 1 going to college soon.
It's a good gap. So 16 years, and I have 15. So you got me beat. You got the gap. I have a pretty good gap with 29 and 14, but you have me beat. So
Yeah.
My ex-wife had 2 before I met her. So with her prior marriage, so they are now 18 and 21, and together we had a 9-year-old. So we have 3.
12-year gap.
The 2 were a little bit more complicated because the 2 have a dad, right? So they have a dad and a mom, and I'm not as much involved in their life anymore. But they're also older, right? It's like, you have older
Right.
kids, right? They're doing
Right.
their own thing. So 18 and 21-year-old, the 18-year-old just graduated from high school, 21-year-old is in college, and the 9-year-old is in grade school, elementary school.
Awesome. We got a football team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Put them all together. We can and with one on the bench, I think, right? Yep, one on the bench. The kicker. Who's going to be the kicker? I don't think I have a kicker. Do you have a kicker? Do you have someone who could be the kicker of the team?
I mean, I had my 18-year-old kicked for a Pop Warner team when he was a kid.
He's the kicker.
That's got it.
All right, cool. All right, awesome. So I'm going to kind of start us off with some of the key challenges that I faced, and I think we can all kick in. We've all probably faced our own key challenges, and I think the 2 main topics for today are going to be, one, around building a cohesive unit, right? Creating a family structure where the siblings feel like siblings, and 2, parenting when you have a situation where there are other parents in the mix, and we're now parenting our kids, and we're parenting other kids that there's other influence to consider, and trying to do that consistently in a family structure. I think those, to me, are the 2 main pieces of it. The that we got to consider, and kind of talk through.
Or is there another? I don't know if you guys had this. I didn't have this, but I'd actually imagine you might have this. Is like, do the older ones ever feel jealous, or feel like they're not getting attention when you have one so much younger? You know what I mean? Does it kind of like take their attention away? I mean, the shine off. Are you the biological father for all four?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say there's definitely that. It's tough to balance, right? Because, with the babies just obviously take a ton of work, and they have set schedules and naps and all this other thing.
So
and just
needy, those babies.
Really needy.
Ugh,
I mean,
gross.
Even more than the dogs. I mean, whereas the older ones, they're committed in other ways, right? So they're the ones that, like my 16-year-old son is heavy into hockey. So it's hockey all year round. And when he's not playing hockey, it's lacrosse. And like, it's just a huge commitment all over the place. But yeah, so it's tough to balance the two. But now that they're starting to get their own friends, and now that my daughter's got her own car and she drives, it's, it has started to, they started to go their own way too the last like year or two.
The driving piece definitely makes the commitment of it easier. How are with a new baby introduced to the situation, how do the kids kind of come together on that? And what is your and there's no right or wrong here, because there's so many dynamics that influence it that, I think the important thing to remember is we try to do our best to build this cohesion in the family unit, but there's a lot of factors at play, right? And a lot of things that can influence that outside of our control, without a doubt. How do you find that the cohesion is with the older two and the younger two with an age gap like that?
Yeah, with my 8-year-old, it was a little easier to manage.
Yeah.
Like they were a little bit closer, and it wasn't as big of a deal. They just saw themselves as like big brother, big sister sort of thing. The 2-year-old, it was definitely different for sure. It definitely kind of pushed them a little bit further onto their own like independence and a little bit more on their mother's side and stuff like that. So I don't know if it was just because of the 2-year-old or just because of their ages, but it definitely, I don't want to say a wedge, but the age gap was so substantial
It created a dynamic.
I mean, literally my daughter is technically old enough almost to be a mother,
right?
Of the 2-year-old at this point.
Yeah.
Thank God she's not, but
but
a mother that is
absolutely right. Right.
One of the things we did so we were engaged when we got pregnant, and when she was pregnant, we got pregnant. Is that like a chauvinist thing to say? Like,
yeah. You're kind of responsible.
Yeah, exactly. But we were engaged, and we brought the boys they must have been like 11 and 7 or something like that, to all of the not all of them, but a lot of the ultrasound appointments.
Yep.
So they were kind of part of the process of learning about the new baby and the whole thing. And I don't know if that helped at all, but like I never really had any issues with any of that. I would say one of the biggest issues that we had though was because, as is well documented here, I'm the coach of my little boy's team, so I have to go to all his stuff.
Yep.
Right? If I don't go, there's no coach. Right? We have an assistant, but I'm pretty much going. The ex has had to divide her time more.
Right.
So she's got to go to the older boys. The oldest is in college. He's got games up in Boston. The younger one was involved in high school sports, whatever it is. So she's kind of dividing her time up a little bit more, whereas I was at everything for the younger guy. And the older ones, I don't think had a problem with me missing. They kind of understood. But I feel like the younger one sometimes was like, well, why isn't mom at any of my stuff? And again, perception versus reality. She was at some of his stuff.
Right.
But she was dividing her time.
But she's trying to.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I'm at everything. I'm at all of his stuff.
Yeah.
So it's
that's
like,
an
what's the
interesting
perception
point.
versus the reality is like, she's not at any of my stuff.
Right.
You
And
know what
and what's happening is by default you're creating, and not maliciously or purpose, but because you're there every game as the coach, you're creating the expectation that, oh, well, you're here every game.
Yeah, exactly.
And the concept being like, well, I got to be, right?
Yeah.
And if I wasn't coaching, we'd be dividing a little more.
Because we did have to divide that stuff back before he was around. I mean, we divided and conquered all the time.
It's one of the reasons I stopped coaching my kids at an age, because I saw that was, and it was right before like that middle school age, where now middle school sports become an everyday thing. And so I saw what was going to happen. I'm like, all right, if I continue this route, I am going to, one, miss everything for either for one or two, or I'm going to be with one all the time and never see the other. And it was like, now's a good time for me to, but I did coach it when, with your son's age, I was coaching.
I mean,
my
I
kids
feel
and-
guilt. I say this, I've said this, especially now that they're graduating from high school and about to graduate. Like I tell them all the time, like I really feel like I got to a bunch of the 18-year-olds high school soccer games this season, but I really didn't get to much of the college.
Right.
And I tell him all the time, like he's like, I think he's fine with it, but I'm like, I really feel bad that I missed out on some of his stuff.
Right.
Because I literally couldn't go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's got a game at 2, I got a game at 11. I got to go to Boston.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not happening.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's not easy. And in each of our dynamics, I'm sure there's things getting processed by the kids that they're just getting processed in the way they are. And some of it might not be an issue, right? But some of it, they might feel a little slighted. And it's very difficult. Here's a prime example of that for me, and you guys might share something similar. For me, our oldest is one of the things she does is she's a dance instructor. Okay, so she's not on stage dancing anymore, but she's like putting together these performances, and the performances go and they win. So trickle down beyond that, the younger one beyond that is 25. He's in theater. So what do? Well, we always go to his plays because he's performing in theater. And then beyond that, the middle child of the 5, it doesn't really do anything that a ton of stuff that involves like going to see her or anything, but she's fine with it, right? And then the younger 2 are still in those sport type of things where we're always going. So what did it create with the older one? I think because she'd always be like, come to the dance recital and see what I put together because it's performance. But it's like, and we love her and we want to support her. But it's like, you're not dancing. If you were dancing, I would be there for every one of them, and because we did that, right? But we go, like, my wife goes more than I do. And mainly it's because of the thing you said. Like, we got to divide and conquer, right? She goes more than I do. But there's definitely, I think, a feeling of FOMO. Like, what she sees, well, you go to John's plays and you go to, Ava's this, and you go to CJ's this, blah, 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 and I'm putting on a performance. You should come and see and support, right? So she'll even text us, like, when they're live streamed, she'll send us, it'll be like a Saturday. In the middle of the day, she'll be like, here's the live stream at 3:00. You can watch the performance that I'm not in. But she did choreograph the whole thing. And so there was pride. I'm not saying that. But from the kid's standpoint, I do think there's a bit of her feeling like, I want you to see my stuff too. I want you to be part of my stuff too, and a little bit of that, that jealousy maybe.
Yeah, and I think I had both of those scenarios. So with my older 2, when it was just the 2 of them, like we had 50-50 custody, right? So I was at a lot of everything, but my son with his hockey. Again, I was coaching his hockey team, so I spent a ton of time with him, but my daughter wasn't in many extracurriculars. So even though I had him half the time, it wasn't equal. You know what I mean?
Right, because
probably in her eyes anyway.
Because you're being pulled in a direction because of these outside factors. Yeah. And I think we have to be conscious of that. I think the solution here, because we're very solution based, right? When we talk about things like this, I think the solution is to be conscious of it. And the worst thing you can do is just say, like what you said, like, I noticed this trend. So how can you be conscious of that? Well, maybe as you go into next year, maybe you make some conscious effort to say, okay, I'm going to set up my assistant 2 or 3 games so I make sure I'm here, right? Because how, right? And we learn through mistakes. That's how we learn, right? We learn through
I'm learning after the fact. I'm looking at it after the fact and saying, oh shit, I missed the season.
Felt, right, and I felt
and I feel shitty.
And, so if you adjust fire for that, right? That's it.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Forward observer too. So I used to call in artillery strikes.
There you go. So if you just fire for that, and you mean if I do something different? Yes, Patrick. If you do something different, because of it, then that's good parenting in my estimate. It's not getting it right out the gate because we fuck that up all the time, but it's recognizing and adjusting fire so they can see that you verbalized, hey, I fucked up last year, didn't like how it felt. Here's what I'm gonna do this year. And they're going to feel great about that because now the perception is you may only make 2 or 3 games, but that perception just did a 180, right? Patrick does care. right? And like they know you care, but perception.
Yeah,
Perception.
perception
It's
is so
tough.
hard to deal with the reality versus perception. I think you do have to communicate. You have to verbalize it,
Communicate is a great.
and I think you have to own up to what you're feeling, right? So in my case, I'm owning up to the feeling of guilt that I didn't go as often as I would have liked to, right? And it's like, and I think my ex does that too with my boy, and she's like, hey, like I had to go to Logan stuff. I'm sorry I missed it. You know what I mean? Like, I think those things go a long way, even though they don't solve it, but they go a long way to at least so the kid understands like you would be doing this, but there's other things going on,
Right.
Yeah. But it's tough too because it seems like we're always giving, always giving, always giving, always there to support. But just because we're giving all of our spare time to the kids doesn't mean it's disseminated evenly to them either. Or if their perception is you spend way more quality time with them than you do me.
Yeah.
Because I used to drag my daughter with me to all my son's games, but does that mean I'm spending quality time with my daughter or am I supporting my
She's
son?
a passive observer, right? Along for the ride. We all know those kids because any of us that have been involved in any sort of performing art or sports where you're constantly going to things, right? I can identify those kids. I just know they are like that's the kid that's always there just watching, right? And they don't. And you talk to the parents, you're like, oh, what is little Jesse do? Oh, no, nothing really. And you're like, oh, they're just dragged along. And some don't care, right? It becomes their social time because there's other dragged along kids that become part of it. But you're right. But the attention and what does the conversation revolve around? That other kid, right? And with blended families, I think this gets amplified because there's already this underlying notion of there's a difference. Like they know there's never going to not be a difference. Two separate grandparents. Is there full of quality in what one grandparent does? What another? You can't control that. You're never going to control that, right? What if one of the sets of grandparents are dead and they only have one? So now this side is these two biological grandkids, even in a well blended family, may get a little more because it's there, right? And it's not on the other side.
Or there's a conflict when like you're together, like you've got, your baby mama is somewhere else, right? And she's got him half the time. The older kid's half the time. Is that what you said?
Yeah, they're spending more time with her now this year
Yeah.
because my daughter went to kind of like a private school this year, so it was closer to her house.
So like there is that as well. Like when you're splitting time, then like what happens in those times is a little bit competitive. And I know like so I'm a terrible skier. You guys ski?
Yeah, that's the one thing I love doing with my 16-year-old boy.
So
That's our thing.
I can't fucking ski, right? So, but it's I can't.
You're an athlete,
Just
Patrick.
I
You know
can't,
anything.
I
You are
can't
an
ski.
athlete.
I mean, I've only been
Helmet.
skiing like 6 times in my whole life, and they've all been since I was 42, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not going to be good, really that good ever. But like, I'm incompetent right now, and the reason I bring it up is because
Depressing.
the reason I bring it up is that like my little boy enjoys skiing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my ex introduced it to him. She introduced it to me. Right. At about the same age. And he was a little bit younger, but like the same time. And I'm obviously terrible at it. But now that we're separated, she's like got the skiing thing. And I like was talking to her on the phone about this. And I was like, look, I feel bad that I can't go because he wants me to go.
Yeah.
And she was like, not for nothing, but like, you're with him all the time. Like you're doing all the freaking sports. Like at the time I was doing basketball too, the soccer. And it's like, why don't you just give the skiing to me? Can I just have the skiing?
Can I just have it?
Can I just have it? Like the skiing could be our thing.
Right.
And I was like,
that's
and
a
like,
very
I had
good
to kind of like,
conversation,
yeah, exactly.
though.
I had to kind of be like, you know what? Like, you're right. The skiing can be your thing. But like, I don't want him to come back to me at the end of the ski season and say, like, we never went skiing.
Right.
I mean, I don't
Right.
want that either, but like I could totally be like, look, like skiing can be
Yeah.
her thing. I got the soccer thing. I mean, because
Yeah.
I'm spending a lot of time with him. It's like, okay, I think that's part of it as well, like this competitive dynamic.
Yeah.
Kind of change your subject here, but one of the biggest things we're facing now is like vacation. And if you take vacation, do you invite the other kids on vacation with you
Oh,
too?
yeah.
Especially if it's a big one. Like we're talking about Ireland. It's like, do we invite the other two? Like that changes everything. Like that's an extra hotel room. That's
Burn
a
rate.
bigger car. Like that's
Burn freaking rate.
So if you're asking that as a question, I'm gonna put a guilty comment out there, and I do think the answer to that is yes, because my general comment and is it all the time? No, because I still do those things where I'm like, I try like once a year with just my biological two. I want to give them time just to, I think they deserve. But though, and those are very planned. Like, hey, and I've said that to them about this summer because I'm like, this next summer, my oldest of the two biological is going to be getting ready to go to college, and I think us really getting that in that summer is going to be tough. And a lot of planning and whatever. But I said, so this summer, let's make sure we get one of those in, even if it's a long weekend. But to the point of creating cohesion, I think the best way to create cohesion, and they don't have to be big, expensive things, is with the family trips. The family trips, and also the other thing that I've been looking at, and I didn't really do this before, but I'm going to start doing it now, is like gift time, right? Christmas, things like that. Buying 5 tickets for the 5 kids to go do something together without us. Just creating this atmosphere of, because we're going to eventually be gone, right? And we'll be dead. You're going to be the support network for each other. So the more we can build that support network together and build these bridges, the more when we're gone, you're going to have each other, right? So creating these opportunities. And I've told the story to Patrick before. You probably haven't heard the story. But when we were first merging this family together, and we went to SeaWorld, and I'll shorten it because you've heard it enough.
Yeah, it's on the podcast.
Yeah. So go back and listen. I don't know what episode it's on, but we go to SeaWorld.
Brian doesn't listen to our podcast.
No, but I just don't know what exact episode we talked about it on. I listened intently.
Oh, come on.
Leadership is listening is leadership. Leadership's listening. I try to lead by listening. Sometimes to the podcast. Sometimes not. Joe Rogan doesn't listen to any of his podcasts either. He's not a bad guy.
The show notes are searchable, by the way, so you can actually just do a search on the side and you can find it.
So I'll tell the short version. Go to SeaWorld. It's one of the first times we're doing a trip together with all the kids. We have I won't call it an incident, but we have a disagreement in the park because we had brought a ton of food to save money. Taking 5 kids to fucking Disney and SeaWorld is expensive. I'm like, you can save a little money, and we'll just bring the lunch at lunchtime. We'll just go to the car and eat. We'll come back in. But you realize that's not really the parks are specifically designed to make that a very long walk, right? Mm-hmm. And so, Lori's like, let's give them. They're hungry. We're gonna give them money. I'm like, well, let's just go back to. She's like, no. I'm just giving money, and I got frustrated, and I was like, fine, do that. I'm gonna take Ava and C. So I did this split, and she pulled me aside. She's like, no fucking way. She's like, no way. I'm like, this is how we will build this thing. And if you do that, we're going in the wrong direction. And it was eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
And she like I said, I've told the story. It made me realize that she was all in into what we needed to do. So I spent the fucking money on the food, right? And I gave in because the point was being together was more important than saving the money on the food back in the car. And why did I need to really win that battle?
Now it's time for my story, and it's time for Coach Pat therapy session, where you guys give me therapy and let me know what you think about this. So my situation is very different because the 2 older kids have a dad and a mom, right? And I'm just this ex-stepdad, right? Younger guy's just mine, right? And she's got the 3 of them because she's the mom for all 3. So how do I handle that situation in terms of vacations? So this is how I do it, and I'll just let you, so when I go away with my little boy, we do things to basically just the 2 of us. Mm-hmm. She's always doing the stuff with the 3 of them, right? The 3 boys. And obviously when their dad, the step kids, when the dad takes them, he's not taking my kid.
Right.
Yeah. So this is a little different, right, than what you guys are dealing with. What I try and do is we do a family vacation that my older boys were a part of when we were married. Mm-hmm. I still always tell them look, we're going to Cape Cod for 2 weeks. You freaking welcome to come. I just give them come, please come.
Yeah.
They never come, but you're older too. Please come. And then I do stuff whenever I go to a sporting event, I always get 4 tickets. And I'm like, all right, well, we're going to the Red Sox game. Do you want to come? And sometimes I'll get 1. We go to Celtics game, I'll get 1. I never get all of them, but I at least give them the option.
But you don't get all of them mainly because of schedules.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but you're creating these opportunities of keeping them together as a unit in specific examples, and I think that it doesn't. I want,
and I do kind of justify it because, like, when I do something like more adventurous and more expensive, I'm just doing it just with my boy.
Yeah.
And the way I kind of justify it is like the two older kids are going all over the world. I mean, they're freaking traveling all the time.
Right. It's different.
You know what I mean? So it's like I
different.
feel like I owe it to my younger boy to give him some of those experiences. You know.
Yeah.
But like I would love to involve the older kids a little bit more, but I feel like I'm doing what I can too.
My only, if you're asking for feedback, my only feedback would be
It's Coach Pat therapy session,
Yeah.
so I'm here.
Maybe-
I'm on the couch.
maybe a couple of those are forced.
Right.
They're not options. Like you lock them in and say, hey, listen, I really want to do this with all the boys together. Right. Here's the date. Can you lock it in? Right. So doing the stuff you're doing is great. I've become a little believer of sometimes you got to force the hand.
Right.
And then when they're adults, it'll naturally, because it's very easy. And I've gone through kids breaking, and you're doing this too. Like they get into that 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and to then make, you want them to be independent. You have to force the fun sometimes, and we do that. Like I got a 29-year-old, and we'll force the fun. Like,
I mean, my conversations with my boys are getting to the point where, remember Brendan was here and he was showing us his text messages with his boy. It's just all him.
Yeah.
There's no responses. It's like he's just all text messages for me. That's the way it is sometimes. It's like I reach out to them, like I won't hear from one
It's
of them
like,
for a
I
week.
know you see it. You got your phone,
Right.
literally skiing with the boy. It could be 12 degrees outside, and as soon as he gets on the lift, takes the gloves off, and he's on the phone. I'm like, what could be so freaking important? Like, you don't do anything.
Right. Yeah. They're always on it, except when magically my messages go into like, oh, I didn't see it. Really?
Exactly,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah.
You magically missed it.
Yeah, so the dynamic with me is because I got 3 boys and a girl, and the girl's the oldest, right? So the things that I usually enjoy doing, like the camping, the skiing, the stuff like that, like maybe if we go glamping or maybe if we go spring skiing, she might go. But other than that, like she kind of just doesn't do that stuff. So like I almost have to like build that time in with her, separate, like one-on-one to make up for all the other times that the boys want to do the stuff that I want to do. So that's where I struggle.
Yeah. Or you force it a bit. Like I said, you find something that is a little in the middle for everyone, and it doesn't have to be anything more than, weekends are great, whatever. But just that's my take. Not right or wrong. I'm going
to take away from this is I'm going to try and find something that the 3 of us can do.
Yeah,
that they have to do.
Yeah.
Well,
And
no,
even if
3
it's twice a
well, I mean,
year,
4 of us, yeah.
those things will become. What's interesting is if you create patterns, then the kids, even as they get older, they start to like look forward to it. Like, oh, we do this, we do this. Yeah. This is the thing we do. We have a Christmas party every year, and you've been. So we have an adult Christmas party. You haven't come yet, which is upsetting.
Well, that's because I was never invited.
That's not true.
So true.
Are you on Facebook?
Yeah. But we have this adult Christmas party, and we've set an age limit. So the rule is you can't go until you are this age. And it created like this thing where it's kind of funny because we're the parents. We're not supposed to be cool. But we've created this thing where the kids ask every year, can I go to the party can I go to my parents' party this year? Which is kind of cool. And it's like the thing, like when you're this age, you can come be part of it. And they've created a thing, but it's a thing, right? It's a thing that it doesn't cost me any more for them to be there, but it's a way that like they look forward to doing this thing, with us and with the kids. And so there's many ways to create it. Sporting events are great. You do that, but sometimes if you have a kid who does, like one of my kids could give 2 shits about sports. The other 4 would go to anything pretty much. One could we have season tickets to a couple of the local college things, and we invite them all the time. Zero interest.
Right.
Nah, I'm all set. So you got to find other stuff, right? You got to find other stuff. Sometimes it's stuff I hate. Well, all right, we'll do it.
What do you hate, Brian?
What?
He can't say theater on the air.
So thanks for joining us on The Art of Fatherhood. We're getting close to our time.
Freaking hate dance recitals.
2 key takeaways for today are: 1, sometimes you got to force the fun to create it. I think that's important. Be conscious about these things that we're doing. Recognize that there's differences. So maybe more than 2. I think we can all give our takeaways. My takeaways are: recognize that there's differences. Make a conscious effort to address them and fix the inequities that you see, right, that might be out there, and make bringing these kids together a thing. Bring it together, because at the end of the day, like, we can't forget, the more support system they have, the better off they'll be, and we're going to be gone, and they will be the support system for each other. What are your takes?
Probably just. I mean, I like all of those. I think I was going to say communication, which is kind of cliche, but like communicating, having an open line of communication with all the boys so that they understand, well, all your kids, so that they understand what you're going through too.
Yeah,
I think owning up to it, like I'm trying the best I can to get to everything.
Yeah.
And letting them know that it's important to you as a parent, so that then they feel it, because again, like their perception is going to be different from even the reality.
Yeah.
Sometimes their perception is closer to the reality. Sometimes it's farther apart, but that's all they have.
Right.
Especially when they're younger, they don't have the perspective of life, or they don't have the perspective of other people's perspective. They've only got their own perspective. So I think communicating as often as possible, especially if you're having challenges, dividing time, is very important, because otherwise they'll just go off to their own conclusion, and that will create a bad dynamic.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll kind of add to that is, kind of reflective on myself, and something I have to keep telling myself here is just keep trying. Like you said, you send the messages, looks like they fall on deaf ears, and it's like, well, then they really don't care. So don't give up. Just keep trying, I guess, and that's something that I have to
thick skin is
tell
important.
myself. Yeah.
Thick skin is important, right? And it's easy to be like, well, fuck them, right? It's easy. Sometimes
I tried. Yeah.
Sometimes it's
you
easy.
have to find the balance between just kind of, because like we've talked about this before. Like my expression is, they're not yours, right? The kids aren't yours. They don't belong to you. I mean, there's some
your kids don't
some
belong
societies don't even believe that you should have any role in their upbringing. The kids just freaking are going to be their own thing, So like, there's the balance where it's like, do I just let them do that without feeling like I'm even a part of it? You know what I mean? That's the way an old school parent might have done it. Old school dad might have been like, you know what? Like, the kids are the kids, and like, I'm going to work, I'm going to provide, and then they're out of the house, and that's it. But it was intentional, right? It was like to build independence and resilience and all those things. And then the other side of that is the touch base. Like, hey, like you said, keep trying. You know what I mean? Regardless of the fact that they want to go, you just keep, hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And don't just do the fun things. Like, it's so easy for me. My son got a dirt bike. I got a dirt bike last year, and we go skiing together. And it's like, those are the things I enjoy doing. Like, I have to make sure that I focus on everybody's interest, not just my own.
Yep.
And
it's very easy to get.
Do the things
harder than it sounds.
Brian doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
The magical no one will know. It'll be my obituary. By the way, all those XYZs, fucking hated those. That's gonna be my eulogy. He wanted to just let everyone know that he suffered through endless whatevers. Great stuff. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
David Jones.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.